Anime uploads to YouTube caused 2 international legal incidents in the 2000s. Nobody seems to remember this. Nowadays, these memories of anime uploaded to YouTube in 360p quality split into 3 parts is a basic canard for being there, back before whatever is now. It was in the post-2007 American cultural landscape where anime was slipping away from the cultural consciousness. Well, sort of, unfortunately. If one was too young to tape trade or file trade, could not risk using the family computer to torrent, or were unable to navigate to a streaming site, however ad-laced those were in the late 2000s, one could always look on YouTube. There was more than likely some account uploading episodes of Naruto or Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Digimon, or whatever segmented into 3 parts to get by YouTube's limitations. It was an avenue for bootlegging media, not always good, never high quality, but true to its time. It was the modern manifestation of people using loose legal frontiers to spread things they liked. Cheaply printed books in the 1800s, copied films in the 1900s, then fan translations uploaded to video sharing sites, like YouTube and Dailymotion, in the 2000s. Were these uploads as century-defining, though? The greater impact of this on YouTube's history and landscape is somewhat forgotten as said. On the English-speaking internet, and this video will mostly be from the perspective of the English-speaking internet, the infamous Viacom lawsuit is always, more or less, blamed for putting an end to early YouTube, the period from 2005 to 2010 or 2011. Between 2006 to 2009, though, there was a period where it was questionable if international video sharing sites like YouTube could survive financially and legally. YouTube ultimately did, but not on its own. Thanks Google, I guess. By 2006, 1 year after its inception, YouTube was being legally hammered on both sides of the Pacific in courtrooms. Had things turned out differently, and interpretations of safe harbor and fair use played out differently in American courtrooms, YouTube could have been shuttered. That's right, Naruto Uzumaki on YouTube could have stopped Mr. Beast from ever existing. Perhaps, in some sense, they're one and the same. When YouTube was a fledgling startup, originally intended to be a dating site, the video site had very minimal copyright safeguards. Really, the modern, as in current YouTube copyright system did not fully exist until 2016-2017. Back in 2005 then, more than a decade before that, YouTube mostly directly trusted IP holders to depend on the DMCA system, which was, and still is, largely fundamentally broken on both sides in regards to internet content regulation. This meant copyright holders had to be aggressively proactive on their end, but back between 2006-2011, dedicated anime fans on YouTube, unknowingly, turned into international copyright saboteurs and incited a cross-Pacific conflict between YouTube and the Japanese Copyright Collection Society, JASRAC, JASRAC, or more properly, Japanese Society for Rights of Authors, Composers, and Publishers. The right to upload 360p anime to YouTube in 3 parts was tried and then struck down in court, officially. Most anime episodes are about 25 minutes, give or take. This could easily be split up into 2 10-minute chunks and 1 4 or 5-minute chunk, then uploaded to YouTube. The quality was low, usually hovering between 240p and 360p, maybe 480p later on if you were lucky, and the translations for the subtitles often from a unknown source or group. As YouTube's copyright detection system was far less robust, and its recommendations frankly better back then, this illegally uploaded content could proliferate to fans internationally. This was not just exclusive to anime. There used to be a lot of movies and other series that were just uploaded to YouTube. The standards for uploads then were far less formalized, and they only had to be under the 10-minute limit. That 10-minute limit was implemented by YouTube staff as, back then, it was assumed a video under 10 minutes was more likely to be protected under fair use doctrine in court. Subtitled anime went beyond the safeguards of fair use, even in the United States. There was also just lower standards for the quality of uploads, and less of a sense of legitimacy for videos. Videos like Bleach episode 26.2/3.avi could exist alongside internet original animation, comedy sketches, and RuneScape AMVs without question. Content then was primordial and always shifting, and implicitly or not, the ability to see those things made YouTube interesting. Engagement was judged by view count alone, and even if unconnected to anything else, bigger numbers were always better for a channel, even if just to brag about. Legally though, yeah, those straight episode uploads were illegal and outright copyright infringement at best. AMVs and spoofs, though, those had a case to be made as a creative, original, transformative work, though derivative, which deserved protection under the law. Literally uploading a subtitled episode of Crayon Shin-chan, though, only had the defense of English subtitles, which rarely held up in American courts, and never would in Japanese courts. That difference, and who was legally responsible for it, would become a big issue down the line. An intrepid user can still find remnants of this trend scattered about YouTube even into the 2020s. This goes deeper than the oldest AMV on YouTube being Naruto vs. Haku from 2005, which is set to Linkin Park music. There were a few series uploaded, even well into the 2010s, that Japanese copyright holders never seemed to care about. These were not the rights holders uploading old properties to YouTube either, like the Anime Log channel or Atanshinsu channels. The channel, Kinomoto 1990, a very 2000s weeb name, was created on January 13th, 2009, and amassed 3.7 million views. The channel description reads, ellipses, tibia, and anime. But how did Kinomoto get 3.7 million views? Well, some of their uploads are goofy, endearing anime and video game videos from 12 to 13 years ago, but those only have a couple hundred or thousand views. Then it becomes obvious they just uploaded episodes 1 to 5 from the anime series Ichigo Mashimaro. Disclaimer, I do not know anything about Ichigo Mashimaro. Well, that is not true. I do know one thing from Ichigo Mashimaro.
5行目から読んでみろ。
私、日本語わかりません。
じゃあ、座ってよし。
やった。
わかってるじゃないか。
なんでよ。
やってみろ。
日本語わかりませんと言ったはず。
算数だが。
これがアメリカンジョークです。
なるほど。
だからなんでよ。
I never actually watched this show, and I don't plan to. I would assume it's mid-2000s fare about misadventures in life in suburban Japan, but then I see on Wikipedia one of the characters apparently has a nicotine addiction, and the manga is still infrequently running. Imagine if Ed and Eddie still existed, but it was a comic strip and Double D was addicted to nicotine patches. Anyways, it seems like uploads of Ichigo Mashimaro remain on YouTube because the series rights, especially the anime adaptations rights, exist in a weird limbo. The studio behind it, Daume, barely exists anymore, ceasing animation in 2011, and the distributor's animation division was shut down as well. The English rights were supposedly licensed by Sentai Filmworks, but the series is absent from their website. It's still up on YouTube though. The series' legal obscurity then protects Kinomoto's fan sub-uploads as period pieces, or you could even call them artifacts. These uploads grow bright as high-effort late 2000s, early 2010s fan subs, the font choice and coloring, the translation notes added for every obvious and obscure thing, said translator notes attempting to over-explain every joke and cultural reference. The intro's lyrics are even put in English, Japanese, and Romanji. It is honestly pretty soulful even in 240p quality. Also preserved, the comments obviously date back to the late 2000s. Sazae-san sent a request letter to join the Akatsuki. Miyu-chan revolutionized anime. Anna is so cute. Noto's voice makes her even cuter. That one's a little suspect. Wait, all these comments are from within the last year. Yeah, these uploads still get consistent views and comments in English, Spanish, and even Japanese. Each of these videos has nearly above 100k views each, by the way. Once again, I know nothing about this series, but it shows uploads like these were never fully stamped out on YouTube. There are multiple other full episode uploads of Ichigo Masshiro on YouTube, but Kinomoto 1990s stand out as a microcosm of that entire sub-community on early YouTube. Or maybe they will be pulled down one day. Check it out, but this video will do the best to preserve them here. What about the channels that were stamped out? Well, back in the mid-2000s, one could find many channels uploading big-name series openly, and those playlists often got to hundreds of videos. As long as the series was from a foreign country and not really officially released in English, you were basically able to upload it. By the late 2000s, those channels were being weeded out by YouTube's updated, Google-supported copyright system. Also, foreign companies were noticing that YouTube was a thing. There were other video sites early on, such as Yahoo Video, later known as Yahoo Screen, now defunct, Google Video, which was merged into YouTube, Stage 6, supposedly good, but it was only online for like 2 years and I was never able to use it, and others such as Rever. Does anyone even remember Rever? I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly. It actually did the whole revenue sharing thing before YouTube's AdSense. None of these developed the same culture that YouTube had, and if one was looking for anime uploads, they were more likely to use some dedicated obscure streaming site or just find Dailymotion links. Credit to Viz Media in that regard for creating an official dedicated streaming site for Naruto Shippuden, later rolled into Neon Alley and Hulu, that was actually usable. Now, there were still channels that uploaded Naruto back then, as will be seen later, but that decision by Viz Media actually took a lot of wind out of Naruto uploaders' sales, for a good reason. Most people are going to end up using the option that is both legal and far easier than sifting through 1,000 YouTube channels when they want to watch one episode. I am unfortunately going to have to rely on personal experience, hazy memories, and anecdotes for other deleted YouTube channels, so this is probably going to be a quick summary of what I remember. Back in the day, because I was lazy, I usually just watched Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds on YouTube. For some reason, or it could just be retrospective bias, uploads of Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds seem to last far longer than other anime series on YouTube. It was really one of the last series to be purged from YouTube if I remember correctly, but once again, that could just be retrospective bias. There were 2 dedicated uploaders I remember, Mr. Prisman, and after Mr. Prisman, Neotar the Giant, or their names were something along those lines. I remember Mr. Prisman better. Mr. Prisman's icon was the Yu-Gi-Oh! Card Prisman, and I think Neotar the Giant's was an edited version of either Zushin the Sleeping Giant or Gigantes. Reminder, this was more than a decade ago, so the memories are somewhat hazy. Mr. Prisman's original channel was actually deleted, and he made a new channel called Mr. Prisman to continue uploading Yu-Gi-Oh! That was also deleted somewhere in mid-2010. After that, Neotar the Giant filled the role, but he also uploaded fan subs of Digimon, and it was more of a Digimon channel from what I remember. I have no idea where either got their translations or subs from, likely either one of the many streaming sites or just directly from a torrent group. Neotar's channel was also deleted around late 2010 or so, and I don't believe he ever made a new one, so respect to those two, whoever they were in the end. By January 2011, YouTube's copyright system had made it essentially impossible to continue uploading anime rips, or really any rips for that matter. The last upload of many of these anime channels was the first few episodes of Cardfight Vanguard, which, at the time, felt like a Yu-Gi-Oh! Replacement on YouTube. That's mostly why I can remember the date, because it's when Yu-Gi-Oh! Stopped being uploaded to YouTube. The Yu-Gi-Oh! Uploads have been being taken down since 2009, but those deletions, and it really was a mass purge, would put a punctuation mark on it all. There would be no more large anime rip channels springing up on YouTube after that, and even parodies would have troubles for many years to come. Tangent here, but I do want to mention and remember anime media. There were multiple streaming sites back then, and there have always been many streaming sites, legal or not, but I remember Anime-Media the best. Anime-Media.com. It was a pretty basic site in all regards, and, my guess, ran out of either Vietnam or someone's garage. I mainly remember its color scheme and logo though, gray and orange, or this sort of black steel gray. The website header was just a gray overlay of Naruto and Bleach characters, but had seasonal variants like this one, Festive. The website had categories at the top, then the episodes listed beneath the not very good Adobe Flash video player. The website seems to have functioned by mirroring videos from the much less copyright-patrolled Dailymotion video site, but I honestly can't fully remember, and I'm only going off the archives I've been able to find, which aren't perfect. You could even download ringtones off Anime Media. Most modern anime streaming sites are descended from this design, if not essentially nearly the same as that design, but the most interesting aspect of Anime Media was the chat box. Beside forums and comments, Anime Media maintained a live chat box users could type and communicate in with one another on the website or while even watching shows. It was a pretty shitty basic website plugin, but I have never seen another streaming site like Anime Media have a live chat box. I've been told there were sites that used a similar chat box back in the day, but I never used them, so I can't vouch for that statement. I only mention this because, though I never actually typed in chat, I remember someone spamming "do the stanky lag" in the chat. The memory sticks out for some reason. Maybe because you could color the font? Anime Media was a centralized copyright infringement, a giant bullseye with anime, movies, music, Asian drama, ringtones, and even online games. So it was obviously going to get taken down. I was not around for when Anime Media actually went down. It was full of spam and updating slowly by the end, but it appears, by the archives, to have actually survived until 2014 or so, far later than I thought, then gone down at some point in 2014 or even 2015, and then just never returned. There is a Twitter account for it, but doesn't add much. It can be assumed legal notices were involved then. Beyond 2015, anime-media.com has been alternating for sale and squatted in the almost decade since. It is an old lost memory now, fading out by the few who actually used it. In YouTube's case, regarding copyright, Japanese authorities had taken notice of YouTube all the way back in 2006. Their issue: Japanese users were using YouTube to circumvent Japanese copyright laws, which were pretty strictly enforced on Japanese video websites. Outside major series, usually those played on Toonami or licensed by 4Kids in the United States, or European phenomenon like the popularity of Lupin III in Italy, Japanese copyright holders saw the online American and European markets as negligible in cases of copyright enforcement until the emergence of YouTube. English anime fan sites and torrent groups were too disparate to effectively patrol. Large, easily accessible, centralized video streaming services changed that disposition. In 2006, JASRAC, Japanese Society for Rights of Authors, Composers, and Publishers, demanded YouTube delete 29,549, usually reported just as 30,000, files off their website. One would assume videos, but the use of the word files also implies they could have also deleted icons. The language used by articles reporting on this is humorously antiquated and obviously dated to before YouTube became synonymous with video site, or literally just became the video site. The New York Times article from October 21st, 2006 calls it the popular video sharing site YouTube. The purge deleted 29,549 files, but the New York Times article only calls them files, as said, not videos. In an effort to appease JASRAC, as the last thing YouTube needed was an international lawsuit, YouTube agreed to implement a audio signature technology that used a copyright database to identify low-quality copy of a licensed clip. That audio signature technology, once YouTube was acquired by Google, would develop into YouTube's modern copyright algorithm. The 2006 YouTube purge was only the first exchange between YouTube, later Google YouTube, and JASRAC. After that, JASRAC supposedly actively tracked video uploads to YouTube by hand, That means thousands upon thousands of videos involving Japanese IPs from 23 Japanese TV stations and entertainment companies. They hired people to do this by hand. Jasrak then employed DMCA's, Notice and Takedown Procedure, to control what were, at least in Japan, their intellectual property. They did that somewhat indiscriminately. That means some videos, such as AMVs and spoofs, that could arguably fall under fair use in the United States, where YouTube was located, and their servers were located, were removed due to the much stricter Japanese standards. Jasrak, to their credit at first, seemed largely only concerned about Japanese users using YouTube to circumvent Japanese copyright law, an area where they had pull. Jasrak continued to push that YouTube was acting too slow in response. Of course, YouTube had been bought by Google 2 months earlier on October 9, 2006, so Jasrak was now dealing with Google YouTube. This is what put YouTube on equal footing to Jasrak, but it would give YouTube the chance to strike a deal with Silicon Valley power behind the website. On December 4, 2006, Jasrak dispatched and posted this open letter to YouTube's management, CEO Chad Hurley and CTO Steve Chen. It complained about the large amount of audio-visual material uploaded to YouTube and how the notice and takedown scheme was not functioning well due to the sheer amount of material. As said earlier, Jasrak demanded implementation of a infringement preventive system to eliminate copyright issues on YouTube, an open-ended vague request at the time. Jasrak then suggested 3 measures for prevention below. 1. Indicate on the top of the YouTube website, in Japanese, that posting or uploading audio-visual works, which copyrights are neither owned by yourselves nor licensed by right owners, is illegal, and such act may impose you civil and/or criminal liability. If necessary, we will provide the Japanese text. 2. Register the name and addresses of those making uploads for possible legal action. 3. Terminate and block accounts that illegally upload works deleted on and after June 2006. It concluded with a demand for a response no later than December 15, 2006. They also wanted YouTube to respond officially by mail because Japanese business culture. Not a copyright lawyer, and much less a Japanese copyright lawyer, but it is no surprise Jasrak went after YouTube so quickly. There was and is a fundamental legal difference between Japanese and American copyright law and fair use law. Japanese standards are based on the German civil law, and American law is based on English common law. The issue was that difference between American and Japanese copyright law and their origins. Copyright cases in Japan can see full criminal punishment, unlike in the United States. Jasrak was demanding control over Japanese IPs, some of which were likely not registered in the United States, but it was very much a gray area. They were, though, on an American, Californian website. The main conceit to Japanese copyright law holds that authorship is a moral right, the right to translate is an economic right. Moral and economic. In Japanese law, as far as I understand, the original author must give full consent and, if only theoretically, receive monetary payment from any transaction made using their original work, even if only advertising revenue on a website. Moral rights, arguably, only partially exist in the United States law, and are nowhere near as ironclad as they are in Japanese law. This Japanese standard came from the famous Sazae-san tour bus case in Tokyo, which decided if a person were to look at the defendant's buses and in his/her mind immediately connect those figures on the bus with the plaintiff's copyright figures, that would sufficiently establish a copyright infringement. Fair use does conceptually exist in Japan, but, especially back in 2006, it was mired in that complex legal bind of moral and economic rights. Fair use is more or less implied by authors turning a blind eye to fan works or infringements, such as allowing foreign translations to improve popularity of a work. But that is left to the discretion of the creator or copyright holder as an unwritten exception. The internet made many of these direct infractions outside Japan harder to ignore, such as uploading a straight episode to YouTube. Though, as is obvious, it is most often the distributor or publisher seeking legal action, usually not the author directly. The United States has the strongest fair use and safe harbor laws in the world. Fan subs would not be protected in Japan, and their legality in the USA as transformative works has always been debated, such as described here. In the United States, translation is considered a derivative work. Derivative works are original works that use some previous copyrighted work. This means that in the United States, fan translations may be copyrightable on their own, but when the translator distributes the translations without permission, it becomes an unauthorized derivative work and an infringement of the copyright. It seems clear that under either law, fan translations would be considered copyright infringement, even if they were distributed without expectation of payment. Though that is not always universally true. As said, usually a blind eye is turned to allow popularity to occur in foreign countries. While JASRAC had a full legal precedent to pursue legal action in Japan, what about files on servers in the United States? JASRAC's demands showed they were not truly worried about the American market as such. The concerns were about Japanese YouTube, or more the Japanese-facing side of YouTube. In 2014, Japan's Ministry of Economy, Trade, and Industry even admitted a majority of actual piracy was in China, not the United States or Europe. A majority of 580 overseas pirate sites were in China, and it was estimated $5.6 million were lost due to piracy in China of anime and manga. In YouTube's staff's first visit to Japan on February 6, 2007, the group from YouTube was met with delegates from the 23 right owner groups and companies of JASRAC. The JASRAC representatives repeated earlier demands: notice and takedown, Japanese disclaimer on YouTube, and account logging and termination. The meeting lasted for 2 hours. Now, with Google's backing, or control, YouTube began to develop a brand face more culpable to international business culture. This would be the inception of YouTube's modern copyright algorithm, which would evolve over the next 5 years. The next month, in March, YouTube officially implemented the hard 10-minute video limit. The last thing YouTube Google needed was to fight an international lawsuit. The 10-minute upload limit would last 4 years, until 2010, when YouTube began to introduce the Director and Partners programs. Remember those? YouTube largely adhered to JASRAC's demands, but stopped, as far as JASRAC demanded, of resetting the whole service, and settled for a legal disclaimer on the newly developed Japanese language homepage in June 2007. Yep, that's right. JASRAC wanted YouTube to wipe every video from the website. JASRAC then remained skeptical about YouTube's ability to enforce copyright on their platform, but the skepticism waned. By 2008, disagreements seemed to have mellowed out as YouTube inked a music deal with JASRAC in October of that year. If anything, the popularity of such properties on YouTube seems to have reignited Japanese economic interest in the English digital market for their properties. Companies like Kadokawa use YouTube to gauge interest in their properties and series, but that is a totally separate story. That is not to say anime uploads ceased after 2008. No, there was one final incident. Enter Eden of the East, or Eden of the Threest, otherwise known as Basil Hawkins, also otherwise known as Bleach episodes subbed, Naruto dub episodes, Shippuden dub episodes, Pwanageddon, Eden of the Three East, Eden of the Three East 2, and other permutations of Eden of the East. These accounts have now been terminated, as this was a decade ago, but many of Eden's alternate accounts still exist, though empty on YouTube. Eden was a serial uploader of both sub and dub versions of anime, mostly Bleach and Naruto episodes as the names of his channels reveal. Whenever one of his accounts was deleted for copyright, Eden would simply create another one to upload more episodes or anime fights. An accidental guerrilla copyright campaign. Eden then was one of the more remarkable and memorable accounts of the period, as in he had a recognizable name and a personality. So what eventually put an end to Eden's bootlegging career then? A literal lawsuit. In what was essentially the Alamo for anime uploaded to YouTube in 360p split into 3 parts, TV Tokyo, through the American company Crunchyroll, brought a lawsuit into the United States against 13 YouTube channels for allegedly copying, uploading, and distributing episodes of Naruto, Naruto Shippuden, and Bleach to YouTube. How was TV Tokyo able to serve the 13 uploaders? YouTube, as they had done previously with Paramount uploaders, handed over user information. User information, in quotation marks, was the key word here. Most of the 13 uploaders obviously used false information and fake names to make their accounts, thus Basil Hawkins. In 2011, TV Tokyo, through Crunchyroll, brought a case against 13 uploaders in the Northern District Court of California. Once again, definitely not a lawyer, but this was the Crunchyroll Inc. v. Admiral case in short, at least what I was able to read on the internet. YouTube handed over what user details they had as to comply with the legal charge, though, because several named defendants provided false, fictitious identifying information in their counter notifications to YouTube, TV Tokyo/Crunchyroll's lawyers were only able to serve 3 of the defendants by September 2011, one of which had to be served by alternative means, and another was apparently a UK citizen, who would later be dismissed from the lawsuit. Out of the 13 uploaders, 4 ended up being defendants. Eden was actually still uploading copyrighted content during the trial and had to be warned by the court to stop it. The lawsuit was questionable from the start, though. At the outset, TV Tokyo Crunchyroll was demanding a whopping $24.7 million in damages for lost revenue. The American courts seemed less than sympathetic. TV Tokyo Crunchyroll argued that each view they lost to a YouTube video was about equivalent to revenue from 1 Crunchyroll membership and 1 monetized play in their advertisement environment. They calculated this to be $24 million by each individual view, or later on, a percentage of the total views. This was still obviously exorbitant and a pretty optimistic estimate for lost profits. TV Tokyo Crunchyroll lowered that estimate to $16.3 million, then again to a conservative $4 million. The court decided that the evidence provided was not enough to justify any amount because plaintiffs assume that defendant pledge caused plaintiffs lost profits, but provide no evidence in support of this assumption. There is no evidence, for instance, that the amount of anime episodes watched on Crunchyroll.com declined during the time of pledge's infringement. The court decided there was no correlation between the YouTube uploads and Crunchyroll's profits, or an impact on them. The Californian case was decided February 10, 2014, by Judge Joseph Sparrow, with the opinion, defendants are permanently enjoined from directly or indirectly infringing plaintiffs' rights in the anime serials or any anime product, whether now in existence or hereafter created, that is owned, exclusively distributed, or otherwise controlled by the plaintiffs, including without limitations by using the internet or any website or service to reproduce, copy, distribute, download, upload, or make available for distribution, sale, display, or viewing any of the plaintiff's anime products, and to destroy all copies thereof that defendants have obtained in violation of plaintiff's copyrights. Yep, that's a real decision in an American court. Essentially, to my understanding, the uploaders were forbidden from uploading any more TV Tokyo Crunchyroll products, but no damages were owed to them. TV Tokyo's copyrights were enforceable on the uploads, but they had not been able to provide evidence to support any damages. Judge Sparrow reassigned it to a United States District Court, which supported the decision of no damages. Ultimately, TV Tokyo Crunchyroll failed to establish a strong precedent or standard to truly scare away other uploaders. It was highly likely their high demands were at fault in this case. There was also the issue TV Tokyo was suing through Crunchyroll, but what about Basil Hawkins or Eden of the Threest?
Hey guys, this is Dr. Sadly, today I've seen on YouTube that one of my favorite anime guys, Ethan of the East, if you haven't known, if you're on my channel and you like him, his account has been terminated. It says to like.
This video is in memory of Eden of the East. I mean, come on, why did they have to block him? That is less than 10% gone. Well, there is more than 10% of the anime industry. The views are going down.
Like the early period of YouTube, Eden faded out with his 3-part anime uploads. Channels were banned and terminated until it was impossible. The developing copyright infrastructure of YouTube forced videos to change with the times. YouTube shifted into a platform more based and directed on personality, rather than uploading what everyone felt like if they wanted to get popular. Home videos developed into vlogs, gameplay evolved into Let's Plays, and anime uploads turned into reviews and other videos down the line. Not to say all this has not echoed on to today, and there are no more questions of international copyright. In 2011, while not YouTube, Funimation attempted to sue 1,337 BitTorrent users, yes, 1,337, I do think it was on purpose, for allegedly illegally downloading episode 481 of One Piece. In 2012, Toei Animation then sued 869 John Does, who Toei claimed worked in concert via the internet to reproduce and distribute unlawful digital copies as a, in their words, file-sharing swarm. In 2019, the Japanese company Shogakukan demanded YouTube provide the user identities of several channels uploading manga images to the platform. Then, recently in December 2021, there was the case of the Totally Not Marked channel, where YouTube actually stepped in to mediate a copyright dispute from Toei Animation by blocking the channel's videos in Japan. It's a little more complicated, but that's the long and short. One has to wonder if Eden of the East, thinks anything about this or cares at all after that lawsuit. Did anime uploaded to YouTube in 360p split into 3 parts help popularize YouTube? It definitely helped popularize a select sub-community on YouTube, but that was an evolution of a community that already existed long before YouTube. There is a legal paper trail that attests there was a history to these uploads that are, now, mostly a punchline on the internet, but it was a punchline that was actually tried in court. Bootlegging and file sharing still survive in altered forms, even if no longer on YouTube. YouTube is now more about 5-hour-long videos and trying to imitate TikTok. But I'm sure, tomorrow, something new will happen because it has happened before. After all, yesterday, users were claiming it was over for YouTube. Then it was over for Google YouTube. Then it was over for Google+. Okay, it actually was over for Google+. They got that one right. Into the graveyard. Cultures thrive and fall, but the structure binding them exists for now. YouTube still exists. For how long? People were saying it would be over by 2006. Maybe 2007 then.
Are going down.
I'd like to give a 240p thank you to my supporter, an anonymous patron.